Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're really diving into something that I think's been on all our minds lately. Can AI really help us plan for the future?
Yeah.
We've got this Harvard Business Review article, and then we found this strategy report, and they're both tackling this question.
Right.
And honestly, some of the stuff they talk about is pretty mind-blowing, to say the least.
Well, yeah, and it's not like we're saying, gazing into a crystal ball here.
Right.
It's really about, can we take data, can we take algorithms and use them to figure out, what are the potential outcomes of decisions we make now?
Yeah, and make those decisions well when the world is constantly throwing us curveballs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're not even softballs anymore.
No, they're not.
They're like major league curveballs.
Yeah, what even is happening out there half the time?
Yeah, and, I think one of the things that's really interesting, we used to just call it scenario planning, right?
Right.
And now it's really morphed into this, contingency scenario planning, or everyone's calling it CSP now.
Okay.
But the thing is, speed is everything.
Oh, for sure.
We need answers.
Yeah.
In days, sometimes hours.
Not months.
Not months, definitely not years.
Like it used to be.
You know-
We'd all be in a room and we'd have a whiteboard or sticky notes everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not really, it doesn't really work anymore, does it?
No, especially in today's world, the old way of doing things where you get all the, experts in a room and they're like, all right, we're going to, hole up for a couple of weeks. We'll come up with a plan.
Yeah.
It's too slow and it's too expensive, especially for smaller businesses. Yeah.
And one of the reports, actually, that we were looking at, it really highlights how that speed thing is so critical.
Okay.
Especially when you look at something like supply chain disruptions.
Oh, you mean the ones that used to be once in a blue moon?
Yeah.
And now they're every other Tuesday kind of thing?
Exactly.
Yeah, because I was looking at that in the report, and it was saying, how often those disruptions are happening.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was as little as 6 days between major disruptions.
6 days.
It's wild.
It's crazy. And that just really underscores the need for we've got to be able to move. We got to be agile.
Yeah, imagine trying to do that with the old way of planning.
Oh, forget it.
It's I don't know, putting out a fire with a garden hose.
Yeah, exactly.
When you need the whole fire department there.
A different ball game.
Yeah.
Totally different ball game.
We need different tools to keep up.
Okay, so we got to be fast. That's the key takeaway here in this crazy world.
Absolutely.
But how does AI actually help with that? What makes it different?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
We got to dive into the world of generative AI, or, Gen AI, as the cool kids are calling it.
Right.
And see what it can actually do.
Yeah, so both that HBR article and that strategy report, they both seem to think that generative AI was the real game changer here.
Yeah, they were really singing its praises.
They were.
So what is it about Gen AI that's so special?
Well, I think the first thing is it's just so much faster and so much more cost effective.
Right.
It can look at these huge data sets.
Yeah. And come up with all these different potential scenarios so much faster than people can.
So we're not talking about locking analysts in a room for a month with stale coffee anymore.
No.
It's this changes the game.
It does. And you know what I really like about it?
What's that?
It makes it more accessible.
Okay.
So even if you're not a huge company, you can still use this technology.
Gotcha. So it's kind of democratizing this whole process.
Exactly.
I like that. So it's not just for the big guys anymore.
Exactly.
Okay. That makes sense because we were talking about those supply chain issues and how fast things are changing.
Yeah.
It's you've got to be able to move at the speed of light practically.
You do. And it's not just about the speed, though.
Okay.
It can also do things that we can't. It can identify these hidden patterns.
Oh, interesting.
So it can look at the data and see connections that maybe we wouldn't have seen.
It's this superpower for risk assessment almost.
It is.
Seeing around corners, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And, one of the things they talked about in the report was imagine you're a car manufacturer and you're trying to figure out okay, this whole electric vehicle thing.
Right. Huge.
What's that going to look like?
Right.
And Gen AI can look at all these different things, market data, what your competitors are doing, what's happening with technology. And it can even look at world events and see how all those things might come together.
So it's not just what's happening in one little industry.
No.
It's the whole wide world.
Exactly.
And how all that stuff is connected.
It's all connected.
Oh.
Okay, wow. Yeah, and then on top of that, it can also get really creative.
Oh, interesting.
So it can help us to think outside of our own biases and our own limited perspectives.
So it's not just like analyzing the past.
No.
It's using that to actually be creative about the future.
Exactly. And I think that's where it gets really exciting.
Because that's the part that's hard, right?
It is. It is. And they were talking about how some Fortune 500 companies are already doing this.
Really?
Yeah, because they're realizing, like, look, this isn't just some, like, nice to have anymore.
Right.
This is, like, you got to do this if you're going to stay ahead of the curve.
Oh, absolutely.
Evolve or die, right?
Basically, yeah.
But you know what? I think it would be helpful if we could actually, like, ground this in an example.
Oh, for sure.
You know, make it a little bit more real.
Love a good real-world example.
Okay, well, let's go back to that car manufacturer.
Okay.
Because they're facing a pretty big scenario planning challenge right now, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, that whole industry is about to be turned upside down.
Exactly.
So how did they actually use this to figure it out? So how did they actually use it? How did this Gen AI help them figure out this whole electric vehicle thing?
Okay, so picture this, right?
Okay.
The AI, it starts by, like, really analyzing the car company.
Right.
Like, all their resources, their workforce, how much money they've got, the tech they use, even, like, their supply chain. It's like it builds this whole snapshot of how they work.
Yeah, like a digital twin almost.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And then it runs simulations.
Yeah. So then it goes out and it looks at everything happening outside the company.
Okay.
Like, what are the customers doing? What are the laws? What crazy stuff is happening in the world?
Right, because that stuff matters too, right?
It all matters, yeah. Like with our car company, the big thing was, of course,
Electric vehicles.
yeah, everyone wanting electric cars. So the AI takes everything, like inside the company, outside the company, and it's like, boom.
Right.
It makes all these what-if scenarios.
Like that Revolution on Wheels one from the report?
Yeah, that's the one where it's like, what if everyone wants electric cars, like, tomorrow?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Total chaos, right?
Yeah.
And the AI is like, okay, so if that happens, here's what it means for your workers, the stuff you need to buy.
Oh, wow.
Even, like, where you get the materials to make these new cars.
So it's like a risk assessment, but like on steroids.
Totally. But here's the even crazier part.
Okay, there's more.
The AI then gives you solutions. Like, here's what you should do.
No way. It's like a consultant.
It's like having a super smart consultant. For example, it told our car company they got to teach their workers new skills, right?
Yeah, for the electric car world.
Right. And it even said, hey, you got to work with the battery people.
Smart.
Because if you don't, you're going to be in trouble.
It's making connections we wouldn't even think of.
Exactly. And it's doing it so fast.
It's like an unfair advantage almost.
I think of it more like a thought partner.
Okay, yeah.
It's helping us ask the right questions about the future.
So we can actually shape it maybe.
Right. Not just survive, but actually thrive.
And that's what it all comes down to, right?
Yeah.
Thriving in this crazy world.
That's the goal. And with Gen AI, it feels like we might actually have a shot.
So if you could ask this AI anything about your future.
Anything.
Yeah, like what's one big question you'd ask?
Oh, it's a tough one.
It is, isn't it? But it's worth thinking about. And maybe that's something for all of us to consider
For sure.
as we navigate this increasingly complex world. Thanks for listening, everyone.